Hi, this is Charlotte. Take 20. In terms of in terms of the first question, I think that the term interpersonal racism was the one that stood out to me. It is a term that the definition of the term I'm very familiar with and understand very clearly. However, it's not a term that I hear people use very often, interpersonal racism. And I think it's actually a useful and important term to know. Therefore, I definitely will include this in my vocabulary, um, or in my on my list of words that I use to concisely describe what I am seeing at a moment in time when I need to have a courageous conversation, and how I might intentionally focus on using the language that we were introduced to in this class is really, again, in the context of these conversations that we're learning about, and also when an incident or situation shows up. I am an intervention coordinator, aka dean, and my role in the school is to keep it safe and also to deal with issues like the ones that have to do with race um, and racial discrimination. So I appreciate all that I'm learning, and especially receiving and retrieving terminology and recalling terminology that's so important to have conversations on topics that, for a lot of people, are very touchy. In terms of how privilege shows up in my life, I find this question very, very interesting, um, and I've thought about how to answer it in a hundred ways. I will say that the most salient way that privilege shows up in my life is when I have to deal with other people of color regarding a situation that may be touchy. For example, that may have to do with race, or in some ways, in other contexts as well. It just seems that I'm able to. I feel that I'm able to make connections, maybe that my white counterparts might not be able to make, because I am a woman of color, and particularly a Black woman of color. Um, and yeah, that's where I stand on that. When do I choose to have it be more salient? I've thought about that question as well a lot, and I'm just not sure how to answer that right now. In terms of the last question, have I ever experienced an incident of racism or othering? And I will have to say yes, and sadly, it has happened all too often. Um, one of the I see this as a daily microaggression, but one of the most salient ways that I experience racism pretty much every day, or pretty regularly, is in my community, which is predominantly white. Um, my husband, and who is white but European, will walk into a room or a building or um, a restaurant, some business, and the first person people will want to talk to is him. And there have been moments where I've been standing next to him, and I've needed the service, or I wanted to ask a question, and the focus is just on my husband as if I'm not there. And that's happened, sadly, quite a bit, where people will just focus on my husband and want to help him, or give him opportunities or give him information, and not even acknowledge me. And so so yeah, I see this as interpersonal racism, where it's one on, well, yeah, the term that I started with, where it's one, one on one, and racism. um, but it also reflects a kind of structural racism, because it does carry over. This has happened often, where in when the community is predominantly white, where my husband and I are, where people will just focus on him or want to help him, or maybe glance at me, but it's like I'm wallpaper. I might as well be wallpaper. All right, so that's my that's my presentation, and I look forward to seeing and hearing from you all as well.